Hello and welcome to the Ogre Kingdom's roster reveal. Today we're going to go over some of the Ogre's units, even though we've seen their unit cards already, so we're just going to take a look at this. So we're going to start off with the Legendary Lord, Gracious Goldtooth. Most of this is all just lore about him, if you don't know. You can go and read it, pause, read it, and enjoy that. But we're gonna look quickly at his two unique abilities. Everyone has their price. As your massive, powerful opponent sprinkles you with his spare gold, most combatants are going to rethink their place in the battlefield. I'm guessing that's going to be a leadership buff and leadership debuff, probably. Um, Due to combatants are going to rethink their place in the battle. But as your massive, powerful opponent sprinkles you with spare gold. What? That doesn't make sense. I well, he's supposed to be rich and powerful, riding this thing filled with gold. So I don't understand what this means, but we'll see. I'm guessing you're going to be throwing your spare gold and not your opponent. Spectre of the Titans. The legendary staff of Graces grants him a huge power boost, particularly with taking on other ogres to retain his dominance. So this sounds like bonus attack or stuff against ogres. So, I don't know how I feel about that. I don't like legendary items being specifically for other people of your same species because you're not likely to fight other ogres. You're probably going to be fighting other people. I just in general don't like, hey, here's a legendary item or here's a buff, but it's primarily towards one faction. No, I'd rather just bypass it. Now let's go to Scrag the Slaughter. Again, this is more lore about how he became who he is. And they give us the lore of the Great Maul. So here's the spells of them. Brain Gobbler, it's a hex. Single target, leadership debuff, overcast version, extends effect duration. So, alright spell. Kinda don't like a singular target leadership debuff, but eh. This is their first spell. Next one is Bull Gouger. Ugh. Bull Gouger. It's an augment. It's a single target again, large buff to melee and armor piercing weapon damage, and overcast version has an extended effect duration. Don't really am particularly fond of this one either. A single target. The biggest problem is single targets. Like, you're gonna be fighting a lot of stuff. If it's a single target buff to one person for melee attack and armor piercing, it's not gonna help too much. Or leadership debuff, it's not going to help too much. They may break, they may waver and break, and then they're not completely broken. So they need to break 3 times for that to. But don't know the cost of these, but so far, don't like this one, don't like that one. Toothcracker, augment area. Increases armor and missile resistance for all units in the area. Overcast version has an extended effect duration. Now, this spell is good because it's helping take care of a problem that all the ogres have. Ogres are monstrous infantry. And every single ogre is. The only ones that are not are nobblers, which are like little goblins. So giving them missile resistance will help a ton, allow you to get into the battle and finish off the enemy. So this is good. This is a good spell. Bone Crusher, Explosion. Small AoE that deals large damage after a short windup with significant armor piercing properties. Overcast version deals additional damage and armor piercing damage. So this is just a damage spell. I'm guessing it's more like rune magic where it's the pillar. Pillar of Fire or whatever. I forget what it's called. But I'm guessing it's like that. Roll Guts is a regeneration. Significant single target heal over time. Overcast version has extended effect duration. Basically, overgrowth. Straight up heal. Just single target heal. Okay. Their big spell, the Maul. Explosion. Huge, long, wind up explosion. Overcast version does more armor piercing damage. So I'm guessing this is probably a spell will be very good, but we will have to see how it works. And how well it plays out. As well as full access to lore of the Great Maul, Scrag can summon units of Groggers to his side at a moment's notice. Ooh, the Groggers are Scrag's army, but as close as he ever has to friends, fellow exiles, and rejects from the blah, 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 blah. Oh, Oh, so he got kicked out to the Nobblers, and then he came back, only missing his arms. But anyways, Nobblers, or Groggers, that's interesting that he can summon Groggers. I'm guessing he's gonna buff Groggers? We'll get to them. You'll see why I think that. Ogre Kingdoms. Tyrant. The Tyrants are basically mighty brawlers, blah 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 blah. They get some 3 special abilities. Just actually they don't get 3 These abilities are specific to the entire Ogre faction. So these are the Ogre army abilities that they're showing off. And the meter gets built up by killing things. So one of the things is called Dismember. It's a hex area that decreases acceleration speed and charge speed, helpful for running enemies down or stopping an advance. Don't really like that. Don't really like that. Acceleration speed and charge speed doesn't really isn't that important, in my opinion. Next one is Massacre. Augment area that gives additional armor-piercing weapon damage, base weapon damage, and grants the ability to cause terror. That's actually not that bad. That seems pretty good. Armor-piercing weapon damage. Ooh, is this just melee weapon damage and not range weapon damage too? I don't think they would need it for range melee damage, but range damage for armor piercing, but the base would be nice. We'll see. Terror helps. Okay, next one. Butcher. I think this is the very first one you unlocked. So you will need to, you will get that in the research tree. They show it in the research tree when they announce the Ogre's campaign mechanics. That will be probably one of the first ones you get. So regeneration on a target unit that gives very high healing per second and gives significant vigor regeneration. So I guess you just... Okay, so this is how I see it. If you're not running a single entity army, you throw Butcher onto your legendary lord, like Scrag the Slaughter or Gaya Skulltooth or one of the lords, which is going to be a Tyrant or a Slaughter Master. And if you don't do that, if you don't need that, throw out Massacre. And just pop that down so then you get more damage. And then they're just like aspects of your Ogre's turns, blah blah blah. Slaughter Master. Around the camp, butchers are given wide berth, la 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 la. So it sounds like they're actually like butchers, so they're just upgraded versions of these guys, which we will get to. So, and they have 2 spells. Lord the Great, or Wars. they got the Lord of the Great Maul or the Beast. Which I'm guessing you probably pick Maul. Actually, I think you would do Maul. No, Beast. No, if it's a Lord, I probably pick Great Maul. Maybe. Depends what their skill tree looks like. Well, I'm thinking is place Slaughter Master and then throw a Butcher in there, because Butcher will get the same thing. Yeah. Have both. Yep. That's what I'm thinking. Hunter. Now, these guys, I should say, now for the heroes, and the first one's the Hunter. These guys will seem pretty cool. They sound like they're probably a range ogre, but the biggest thing is that an ogre hunter who has tame a Stonehorn. So they get a Stonehorn mount, which we saw during the battles, especially in the one I covered. That legend showed off. That Stonehorns seem really good. And if we look at this, they'll get them as mounts and blah blah blah. They get a loyal companion, fierce red, incredible melee strength, blah 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 blah. Basically, it's just talking about how like they get a Stonehorn instead of like anything else. Next, we're gonna go to the Butcher. Butchers are just basically, as they describe, a typical more rotund than average ogre with ability to use the Great Maul or the Beast Lords. So that's pretty much it. There's not much about them. Now we get to the Fire Bellies. These guys are more interesting. Along with the lore of fire, they get other abilities. And these abilities are Fire Breath, Magic Missile ability dealing fire, AP, and explosive damage, Flame Incarnate, ward save ability that grants melee damage reflection. Wait, is this going to be a theme? Damage reflection is going to be a theme, I'm pretty sure, during this entire thing. Like, entire of 3. That's gonna be rough for the older races. Oh boy. Eruption. Explosion magic deal in reasonable fire and magic damage. And lower fire. If these abilities don't cost winds of magic, freaking great. This is gonna be a great unit. I would definitely say get a Fire Belly, a Butcher, or maybe not a Hunter. Maybe a Hunter goes into their own army and go crazy with Stonehorns. We'll see. Now for the infantry unit. Nobilize. They are expendable, they are meat shields, and they have low leadership. So, basically, useless melee units. And now let's move on to the Ogre Kingdom's Missile Infantry. They literally only have one, because everyone else is Ogre, and they're monstrous. So, Nobler Trappers. While just expendable as their melee friends, this is the missile unit. And they have Vanguard deployment. Also, they throw traps. So these sound like the Skaven, like, I think it's like, can't remember the exact name, but they throw traps and slowing enemies. So this seems really good as a crap stack. I'm getting a feeling like these guys are crap stack. Or am I thinking Gobbles? I'm thinking of Gobbles maybe throw a trap. I can't remember. There's a unit that also throws nets or something to slow units, but these guys throw traps. So I would say these are probably your early game crap stack units. Now we move on to monsters and ogres. My lord. Oh my gosh. Basically ogre units. First we have the ogre bows. We know about the ogre bows already. because they basically tell us like, hey, look, here's variants. Monstrous Infantry, dual weapons, and Iron Fist. So, we already know about the dual weapons, we already know about the Monstrous Infantry, we don't know much about the Iron Fists. I think they will have more... I think the Iron Fists we've seen, they have more melee defense, and their fists counts as shields. So, that'll be an interesting thing. Unique characteristics. All Ogre units, bowls and above, cause fear, being embodied, blah 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 blah. They count as siege weapons. They also have Ogre charge ability, representing the powerful, terrifying impact that is visited upon any who stand in their way. It reduces bonuses for being braced against their charge. So this might be interesting. It might come out where you don't brace for them, so that they basically lose this bonus. Or maybe not. We'll have to see. Also, they say dual weapons have bonus versus infantry, while Iron Fists have additional melee defense and armor, and counting as being a shield. Yep, knew it. I remembered that. They get more defenses and they got a shield. Counts as a shield. So Iron Fist would probably be the ones you go for instead of even the basic ogres. Like, you probably take the dual weapons and then Iron Fist, because that shield would be so useful for you being such a big boy. Okay, now for Iron Guts. Iron Guts are basically upgraded ogres. They have their two-handed weapon infantry, so I mean, cool. Veterans of combat and many feasts, Iron Guts are the strongest standard ogres ever could be. They have armor piercing and vastly superior armor compared to the brothers, which doesn't mean much because it's vastly superior armor to other ogre units. So ogres could have like basic ogres could probably have 0 armor, and these guys have 20, and these guys have 50 or 60. Vastly incredibly bigger. We'll drink under the table. Oh, that's just... Thanks for telling us a freaking useless point. I don't understand why they did that. Keep the lore stuff up here and give us the actual traits here instead of mixing the two. Man-eaters. Man-eaters are basically... Oh no, what actually makes them different? They're traveling mercenaries. Oh, man-eaters are the things we already had, which are the basic infantry. We didn't have Iron Fists. We had great weapons, pistols. We had dual weapons. Okay, so man-eaters are straight up mercenaries. That's it. Okay, so unique characteristics, they blah 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 are immune to psychology, so that's the only difference, is that they're immune to psychology. They have pistols. They're still pistols. Then a stupid lore bit. So do all of these have pistols? But there's an exact variant called pistols. So I think the biggest thing is that they are immune to psychology. So not much that big a difference. Saber-Tusk pack. These are the Great Wolves. They're basically Great Wolves, if you have experienced them. They have Vanguard, Stalk, and Frenzy. Ooh. They can receive from having an expert hunter in the same army. Oh, so these guys get boosted by the hunters. Interesting. Interesting. So the hunters boost you particularly. I wonder by how much and how well. Because yeah, they get Vanguard, Stalk, and Frenzy, but that doesn't help much. And also they rampage, so makes them a little bit Okay, here's the Groggers from earlier, from freaking Scrag the Slaughter. I'm hoping he boosts them pretty well, so let's see. Groggers. These guys are basically, I'm just gonna say they're Ogre Wendigos. They're fragile. They have stealth. They're as stealthy as Ogre. You'll find surprising enemies at high speed with armor piercing and anti-infantry attacks. Unbreakable. And they might frenzy, and they have vanguard deployment. So, Groggers sound like skin wolves. Is actually an easier way to say it. And they look like skin wolves. They just look like a skinned skin wolf. It's hard to say, but they kind of do with those arms and everything. Yeah. But I'm not gonna make that. That's not a big problem. So these guys just sound like they're like probably better skin wolves, which might mean Groggers are probably the way to go, especially if you're doing our friend Scrag. Okay, now the next one, Giants. The obligatory giant with a bell on his head. Looks like a bell on his head. Yeah. Just telling us the same thing that all ogres, all giants are. Now the Stonehorn. These guys are the coolest things. I love them. Just wait. Is it a regular Stonehorn has rampage? They have terror, and of course the deal takes head on a whole no. They have missile resist. Oh boy, Stonehorn sounds so good. Having missile resist would be pretty good, depending on how much. And they deal terror damage. I'm hoping they have a good melee animation. So that's pretty much it about these guys. But that's kind of sad. They look pretty cool. I'm super excited. They get missile resistance. They might rampage, which probably is the biggest negative on them. But you might not care because their animations are just so good. Now the Ogre Kingdom's missile monsters and beasts. Lead Belchers. Lead Belchers are those cannon boys that I thought were probably shotgunners, but apparently they only fire one cannonball, and it's an armor-piercing property. So that means they probably have a slow fire rate because their damage was really low. It wasn't in the hundreds at all. It was like in the 50s. So they probably shoot very slowly. They say they have obscene range for missile infantry. I call bullshit. They don't really. They have pretty okay missile range. It would be obscene missile range if it was a shotgun type gun, not a single bullet one. Then I would understand it's obscene. But did we basically saying that, like, well, once its ammo's run out, it's an ogre. Yeah, so maybe have decent melee campaign on them. Now, a Stonehorn with a harpoon launcher. Now, it's basically this boy, but with a guy with a harpoon launcher. Basically, here saying they place a whole harpoon launcher on a Stonehorn. They took the Stonehorn, and yeah. So what I'm hoping, and what it seemed like, is that this guy didn't have Rampage. The Stonehorn with Harpoon Launcher didn't have Rampage, and this one did. So I'm literally seeing Stegodons. Legitly, this is like a Stegodon, and that is a... And this is a feral stegodon. So, yeah. Seeing that, I'm like, doesn't make it that good. I mean, it doesn't make this that good. It make this really good and probably is your doom stack. You crap stack until you get Stonehorn harpoon launchers, and then you just basically pump those boys out, and they go crazy. Alright, now the Ogre Kingdom's Calvary and Chariots. Morphing Calvary. Here's the Morphing. I never really seen them up close. They look like big old kitties. Kinda cute. Various is the base, Iron Fist, and Great Weapons. Probably pick the Iron Fist again. Maybe. Essentially, same that we've seen. Variants bring extra defense for extended engagements or anti-large weapons for Ogre Civil Wars. Okay, so they're hinting that ogres fighting ogres is probably going to be a thing. Now for Crushers. These guys look interesting. I'm not really sure if they're going to be that much better. Iron Fists, great weapons for them. Essentially morphing riders, but have decided to be incredibly hard. So it sounds like these guys are tougher. Being Crush. Okay, that's like lore. Okay, cool. And they're massive. Cool, thank you. Thank you for telling us absolutely nothing with 2 points. CA, you've done pretty good, but like with some of these points, but like some of these are like, why is there this fluff here? Why not keep it there? Anyways, artillery and war machines. I'm pretty sure we've seen both of the Iron Blaster and Scrap Launcher during like their unit cards already, and they are both single entities. Actually, you might have not seen the Iron Blaster. I think we only saw the Scrap Launcher, and the other one I'm thinking of is the Harpoon Launcher, Stonehorn. So let's take a look at the Scrap Launcher. Massive range even compared to other siege weapons. Okay, cool. Is happy to trample anyone in range should smaller units approach. Does this mean it can run over units? If so, these guys are like really good. While the ramshackle ammunition is pretty fine for scattered infantry formations, it's unlikely. So it has low armor piercing. Gotcha. Iron Blaster. It is basically probably a giant cannon that's pulled by Rhinox. It actually shoots multiple cannonballs, so sounds like what was it, Necroplex Colossus, but closer to the ground. Will annihilate, huge weapon strength. So sounds like they're making artillery be able to fight back. And has low ammo. So yeah, that was the roster. It was fairly quick. I mean, there isn't much. I'm seeing Groggers being potential army with our boy Scrag, and maybe throw a Butcher in there, and then a Fire Belly on top of that, and there you go. You have your army. You've won Doomstack. I'm getting a feeling everything else is going to be Nobbler Trappers. You're going to focus on Nobbler Trappers. You probably are going to, with your Hunters, you maybe throw into some armies, depending on what their boosts are to the army and all that. But these guys might be their own stack with they're on their Stonehorn, while they pair up with the the Stonehorn with Harpoon. Basically, make a Doomstack of Stonehorn Harpoons, throw a couple Hunters in there, and I think you would throw a Slaughtermaster, along with a Firebelly, and maybe another Butcher. Yeah. But everything else considered, they're monstrous infantry, so, like, they're kind of like Lizardmen, where their big thing is the monstrous side of things, and so you, early game, you go with your weakest units, and then you basically go all in into the monster, which is Stonehorn, probably Morphing, maybe, probably more likely Crushers. Not really deal with this. Maybe do Scrap Launcher as your early artillery, but you could just throw in a freaking Ogre, and there you go. There's your instant attack a walled settlement. So, oh, yeah, no, I'm just sitting here being like, seems pretty good. I just am a little bit worried of outside of our friend the Slaughterer and probably a Slaughtermaster. I'm a little bit afraid of Gracious Goldtooth and what he exactly does, because these two abilities seem pretty garbage. A Tyrant doesn't sound like they're any particularly interesting. Hunters sound like pretty good. Witchers sound good. Firebelly sounds good. Yeah. I don't know. Outside of the other lords, I other than a Slaughtermasters and him, I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little worried, but we'll see. And we know if they go up against Khorne, they're gonna kick Khorne's ass. Most likely. Alright. This has been me, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.